Hi, good afternoon, audience, my guests, my dear friends. Yeah, hi to all of you. I guess we are still waiting for more people to sign up. Hi, Steph. Yes, Tiffany. We also hope that everyone is in the pink of health as well. So while waiting for more guests to sign up, maybe we just say hi to Xiuli as well. Everyone, just say hi, Xiuli. Yeah, and
Hello,
Xiuli is today's guest
everybody.
speaker.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is anyone having their afternoon tea while looking forward to enjoy this session? Yep. And some of you are already very familiar with the function of this webinar. So there's actually a chat box. Feel free to chat with us. Pop any question. If you have any, yeah, that would be great. Okay. And Xiuli, how was your day?
So far, so good. But
So far, so
as
good.
usual, juggling between work commitments and domestic chores. Yeah, just another regular day.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
mine as well. Mine started off having a very interesting conversation with my kids.
Oh, okay. What was it about?
Yeah. Um, I'm sure I will have to seek for your advice later. Apparently, my kids say I have not been giving them enough attention. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So
Yes.
maybe later in the webinar, we will explore this again, huh? How to give
Yeah,
attention
definitely.
to our kids. Cool, cool.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I'm just curious, we have quite a number of friends here already who are joining us.
Okay.
Can some of you tell me if you're married and with kids, please tell me how many kids you have. And if you don't mind sharing with us how young is your kids? Yeah. For me, I have two. Yeah, I usually call them monsters. Yeah, in a very polite way, I will call them as kids, but yeah, they are monsters at times. Yeah. So for me, my son is 10 this year and my daughter is at 7. Yep. So
Wow.
my
Okay.
dear friends out there, share with me about if you have any kids or if anyone married and kids in the making, please share as well. Yeah. As for those who are looking forward to get married and have kids soon, maybe you can also share, you know, in your ideal world, how many kids would you like to have? Yeah. Feel free to share. Okay. All right. Wow. Sherry say married with 4 kids. Wow, Sherry,
Wow,
how are you dealing
amazing.
with 4 kids? And Sherry's kids is 18, 13, 12, and 9. Whoa, you're so
Okay.
capable. I should probably contact you.
And
I should PM you directly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Alicia say married with a 5 months old stakeholder
okay.
at home. I like the way you
Oh.
put it, Alicia stakeholder.
Well,
Yeah.
they are all your
Um,
mini stakeholders and board of governors, right?
yeah, I know. Yeah, in fact, when I was having my con call, I was telling my friends that, very soon my board of directors will come over and take over my spot over the con call. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Nasa said that he's married with 2 boys, 7 and 4. Oh, I like the way how
Okay.
NASA called the boys. They call them ninjas. Oh, because they like to fight and scream. Nice.
Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, Xiuli, without further ado,
Mm.
shall we start? Yeah, while waiting for more guests to come online.
Sure.
What
Oops.
do you think?
Okay. Sorry. Yes, let's start.
Okay, great. So I guess dear guests, let me introduce our speaker for today. Yeah, she's none other than Xiuli, my favorite psychologist. Yeah, and
Hello.
Xiuli basically have a very rich experience, and she has been practicing her therapy for quite a few years already. In fact, she was the head administrator of a private counseling center for 7 years, and that basically inject a lot of passion and excitement for her to pursue into this career path of being a therapist herself. And of course, Xiuli has not only wanting to serve the community, but she also served the underprivileged population as well. And I believe all her projects and most of her projects are funded by some financial institute. Yeah. And maybe later on, feel free to share with Xiuli about, your experience as a parent. And if you want to ask her for more handy tips, feel free to do so as well. Personally, I have so many things that I want to ask Xiuli. Yeah. If I fail to manage my kids, I probably have to outsource to Xiuli already. Yep. Okay. And without any further ado, Xiuli, over to you. Hi, Xiuli.
Hi. Okay. Sorry,
Over to
peeps.
you.
Had a bit of problem with my microphone. Okay. So thanks, Eve, for that generous introduction. I think today what I'm just sharing is based on a lot of extensive work that I've read through about parenting. And last week, in fact, not last week, last year, I had the privilege of attending one of the Adlerian summer schools, and one of their focus is actually doing a lot of parenting skills training. So when we were discussing what webinar to do this week, I was wondering, perhaps we have parents out there who might be interested in knowing how they can manage their relationships with their kids, especially now that a lot of us are working from home. So just to start off today's session, I would like to invite the audience to actually maybe share some of the challenges that you are maybe currently facing while working at home, as well as challenges in general, even when you are not working at home. So maybe you could just quickly put something down in the chat box, and if you can have a look and see what kind of challenges do our parents have today. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, while the audience are putting up their comments, let me share with you my challenges.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, my challenges is because I have to work most of the time and travel most of the time as well. Therefore, my kids are always saying that they don't have enough of me. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that will be my kids' challenges of getting my attention. I believe so. And as for Alicia, she shared that, tough stakeholder to engage and manage expectation. Yeah. So, based on experience, would you think that is a common challenge that parents would usually face?
Well, I suppose parents today definitely are more, they have more challenges than perhaps, let's say, parents in the past, because obviously today's society requires that both parents work. So it's no longer just the males who have to go out and be the breadwinners. A lot of females have to take on that role as the head of house and bring in income as well. So I do think that managing expectations between work demands and family commitments is not something unusual, especially in the 21st century. Yeah.
I see. Okay, true. I totally agree with you. Yeah, and some of our audience actually say, one of the challenges is not spending enough time with the baby, and multitasking as a mother while working. At the same time, having to help them with homework, cleaning, cooking now, especially during MCO. Yes, that totally spell out my challenges as well.
So I guess this is like a personal experience of becoming a domestic affairs minister, huh? Except now our domestic affairs revolve around our children and family members as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Probably we'll have more comments later. Yeah, I'll
Okay,
bring up more
maybe let's
comments.
start with the presentation then. So first of all, I would like to introduce this gentleman here. He, although looks very serious, you'll be surprised to find out that he was actually the father of parenting skills training and family therapy. So this is Alfred Adler, and I would like to introduce him in our topic today because without his recommendations and advocacy for parenting training, a lot of the work that psychologists do now wouldn't be possible. So he's like our father, our sifu, our guru. So he was a doctor from Austria, and that was his first practice. So he used to treat people from the underprivileged communities with medical issues. However, he realized that, other than medical problems, there were a lot of social ills where he stayed. So then he took up psychotherapy, which is part of mental health work. And he looked at how families could help bring up children to be more emotionally healthy individuals who could also contribute and give back to society. So he developed the school of thought, which is individual psychology, to try and describe how emotional distress comes about, and also about how personality develops in human beings. So that was his approach. And during his time, his 4 theories that he came up is that human beings, apart from having physical needs, we have 4 very important emotional needs to kind of motivate us to continue what we do. Now, the first emotional need is needing to have that sense of belongingness or being included in a society or a group of individuals. And that's really important. Apart from that, he also mentioned that having a sense of mastery or competence, having skills to carry out things and tasks was important as well. The third emotional need that he outlined was the sense of significance, or the need for feeling important. Someone needs to feel important in their life, and that can actually affect whether the person is distressed or they are well adjusted. And finally, he outlined that having a sense of encouragement is important, because when people feel encouraged, that motivates them to want to push the envelope of their skills, to do better in life, and just overall be a better person. So this was what Adler talked about. And therefore, he thought that, teachers and parents, because they are the ones that spend the most time with children, it's important that they have the proper skills so that they can develop our children to become well-adjusted members of society. So that's why, in the 1800s, he was already talking about parent skills training. So this is about 200 years ago. So something very interesting. He also introduced family therapy, which is what modern psychologists and counselors do. Sometimes families get together for professional help because they want to improve the family relationships. So this is Adler. Now, of course, because Adler was a prolific professor, but in terms of writing skills, he would write his textbooks in a very lecture-based style. So a lot of people couldn't really understand his concepts very well. So over the years, he had a lot of famous disciples and followers who tried to help simplify some of the concepts so that they would become more easy to understand for the regular person. So then I would like to introduce to you a famous psychologist from United States. Her name is Betty Lou Bettner. In fact, I met her last year when I went for summer school. And she is a professional who has been working for over 30 years in the mental health field. And predominantly, she works with couples, families, and parent groups, because her passion is actually in nurturing the next generation. So she did a very good job in actually simplifying Adler's concepts, and she called them the 4 crucial C's. Now, under these crucial C's, you can see in the bullet points, we have connect, capable, count, and courage. Now, these 4 concepts I will explain and elaborate a little later, but they are basically tied back to the emotional needs that Adler had talked about almost 200 years ago. So now we're going to go into each of these concepts, and along the way, if you have questions, you can start populating our chat box, and we will answer it when we take a break in between the slides. Yeah. So let me start with the first concept. The idea that individuals need to feel connected. We are social creatures. Ever since the beginning of time, our ancestors have realized that the only way that we can survive as a species is if we work together and cooperate. Therefore, whenever we are connected to a group of other people, or eventually we build societies, it gives us a sense of safety, because now we realize that, we can achieve more things through cooperating and working together. So the first idea is that when people feel connected to others, we feel safe, and therefore we are more likely to want to cooperate. Now, the second concept that Betty talks about is this idea of being capable. And what this concept means is human beings have this basic need for freedom. Think about, as I'm talking about this concept, think about the last time, when you were unable to do something on your own. What were some of the feelings that you probably had? It could be frustration, it could be anxiety, because, you realize that for some reason, if you couldn't do it on your own, you feel incompetent. So even with kids and teenagers, this idea that they need to feel they have the skill sets to deal with the demands in their daily lives. And when you have this sense of feeling capable, you're more likely to want to take responsibility and solve problems actively. So you're more likely to want to find solutions and help others out. So that's the second concept of capable that Betty talks about. Now, the third crucial C that is mentioned is this idea of wanting to be valued, to be seen by others as being needed, and we are important. And when people acknowledge our contributions, it makes us feel like our opinions or our contributions count. So therefore, this is the third crucial C that Betty talks about. And the more we feel valued, the more likely we are to want to help others. So that's the third thing. Now, the final crucial C, which Betty feels this is the most important trait that parents should have or to develop, is actually this trait of courage or bravery. To be able to feel like you are able to stand up to challenges and deal with the demands that come our way. And when we impart this sense of courage, we actually teach our children to feel hopeful about life, to actually look at the optimistic and positive sides of life, to feel that even though they are met with setbacks, there will be times where they will be able to overcome these challenges and have that sense of hope. And because we have hope, we are more likely to see possibilities, and we are more willing to try new things as they come along. So that's really important. So as Betty says, courage is the most important trait that we develop in children, because it helps them to overcome not just setbacks, but also handicaps that they put up on their own, obstacles that they might put up so that they don't need to do things. So that's why we have to develop the sense of courage. Now, what happens when any one of these crucial C's are missing? So at this point, I would like to ask the audience this question. Imagine that you have to get attention from another person. What are the typical behaviors or actions or words you will say to get their attention? So at this point, maybe we can invite the audience to write out in the chat box, when you want to get another person's attention, what do you do? And I think, Eve, maybe, we can have a little chat as we wait for their responses. But let me just turn on the light in my room because it's getting a bit dark. Hold on 1 second, yeah?
Sure, Xiuli. Yeah. I guess a lot of places are having heavy rain right now. So therefore, I believe some connection may be affected. So dear audience, I understand that the video could be slightly laggy, but just bear with us for a while. Okay, and
Okay,
Xiuli is
so
back.
sorry.
Yes,
Yes,
no problem.
suddenly there was
Okay.
a storm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, Xiuli.
Ah.
Yeah, I guess maybe some connection got affected, so maybe there's a bit of laggy in the video, but never mind. We'll just deal with what we have. I mean, we will
Yeah,
do the
that's
best out of it.
fine.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All
And
right.
yeah, coming back to the question, Xiuli.
Yeah,
What would
how do you
I
get
do to get
attention?
connection?
Mm.
If you talk about me being in the office, I probably will just get out from my room and sit among the consultant or just drag a chair and just sit there. And I'm very sure that moment everybody will look at me already. It's really get into their face. I guess
Okay.
that's the usual way of how I get my attention. But if you talk about in the family with my kids,
Mhm.
I I'm glad my son is not here. But usually I call my son as 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 baby. Yeah, a very sweet name to call him since he's very young. So I used to call him baby.
Okay.
But when I want to
Mm.
have his connection, I will immediately will call him by his full name.
Okay.
Immediately. Yeah.
Okay.
He'll give
That
me
seems
full
like a very common
attention.
practice. I
Yeah.
work with a lot of parents, and I noticed that this is something they always do. They will call the child by the full name, and somehow the child knows they are in trouble, or they notice
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wonder what about the audience? What do they think? Or,
Um I think one of our guests here,
Mhm.
Cool, actually says that you'll just go up front and say, "Excuse me, may I have your attention?" I
Okay.
guess that's a
Okay.
very effective way of getting attention.
Very polite too.
Yes,
And at
correct.
least they say, excuse me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, probably I should start being more polished.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just go straight and say, "Hey, people, talk to
Mhm.
me." Yeah. And Georgie says, I need to talk. Mm,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
All right. So state the intention before so that the person knows what's going on. That's good too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And NASA says that it will start off with a short name and then full name. Even
Ah,
then, usually it doesn't work. Yeah.
okay.
Then he will start saying that the yeah. Okay. And then of course, apart from I need to talk, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes he does screams them away.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
And it looks like the audience says, yeah, I need to talk seems to be rather common. Wait, very polite.
Mm.
All our audiences are very polite.
Yeah, very
Yes.
civil. So no,
Correct.
no like bodily contact, like pat on the shoulder
Yeah.
or something like that.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
NASA says sometimes he will touch their shoulders, yeah,
okay.
to get their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Usually for me, I will call full name and then I'll give them this laser beam eyes looking, like if you don't, give me attention, you wait and see. Yeah. Then most of the time I will get their attention quite instantly. It always works for me. And then as for
Okay.
Sharon would say, hey, can we have a chat? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So like a very friendly gesture, like trying to catch the
Yeah,
attention.
correct.
Hey,
As
okay.
for Steph, she says, call their name and then we say, let's talk. Ah, sounds very
Okay.
professional. Let's talk.
So it's very interesting that, most of our audience, yeah, is talking about let's talk. So now
Mm-hmm.
let's look at how our kids get our attention, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. So let's go on to our next one. So what happens when crucial C's are missing? So remember the first C we talked about was connection. This feeling that, the other person is relating to me. I'm engaging, I'm interacting. So what happens when the kid feels like this sense of connection is missing? A lot of times the message that is sent is that the child feels like they don't belong. whether they don't belong in the family, they don't belong with a group of friends, which is why they earn the ignorance of others, like people don't want to talk to them. So what they do is they will start to feel like, oh dear, I'm feeling ostracized, I'm feeling isolated, nobody wants to be my friend. And what the response in terms of behavior will be, let me do something to catch attention. So this is where I'm sure this picture is a very common sight for parents out there, especially if you are halfway writing that report or answering that email, and you have this one young stakeholder that will stand in front of your desk and shout. So most likely the child is feeling disconnected from you. So he or she is probably trying to raise their sound level a little so you can hear that they are around. So this is the first, if let's say crucial C is missing, the sense of connection is lost. What about this? What happens when, they've turned up their volume to make sure you hear them and they don't get a response? What usually happens after that? So if you mentioned, your stakeholders will probably, just now you would call their names. So I'm guessing when they want your attention, they'll call you mommy, mommy, right? And if you don't respond, what usually happens next?
I will start seeing people rolling on the floor. Yeah, they become my mop. Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time, yeah, when they don't get my attention, they get really upset, very frustrated. Yeah. I love the picture that you showed, that it looks exactly like my girl. Just like the picture looks cuter. My girl probably has a fiercer face. Yes.
I'm sure a lot of parents out there can agree with this face. They probably see it a lot every day in the house, whether it's their little boy or little girl, or even their teenagers, probably sometimes will have this face.
Yeah, true.
So what happens next when they don't get a response? So this is where they start to feel the second one. They feel like they don't have the skills to get mommy or daddy's attention. So the sense of being capable is lost. And then they feel like, hey, I don't want to be bossed around. So it's okay for mommy and daddy to call me by my full name and say, let's talk. But then when I say, mommy and daddy, I want to talk, they just can't be bothered. And what happens is then I feel like I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills needed to catch their attention. So I feel very inadequate. And what then happens is they misbehave because now they want to take control back from the situation. They want to feel like, as long as I misbehave, I will be the powerful one. And suddenly mommy and daddy will have to drop everything and just focus on me. So then it will help to address the first feeling of being disconnected. So they are trying to reconnect. So this is what we mean by when the capable crucial C is missing. So they will start to misbehave. Now, other than that, the third thing, there are also kids who, feel like, remember the third point about counting, about feeling valued? So if the child actually feels that nobody respects their opinions, nobody respects how they feel about things, then they will feel like I'm not important, that I don't matter in the family, that whatever I do, whether good or bad, nobody is going to care. And because of that, when people hurt them, whether it's physically or emotionally, they want to fight back. So, for example, a lot of us who have teenage kids may say that, when I talk to my teenager, they usually just ignore me. They don't want to talk to me. And when I say, let's talk, they just shut down. They just ignore me. So a possibility is probably the teenager in previous experiences felt that, well, my opinions were not heard. My views didn't count. And so now I rather don't say anything. And so they just their form of hurting their parents is by doing the silent treatment, ignoring instructions. And this goes for school going children as well, when they feel like, I don't matter in the family. And this is the idea of count. Now, the final one, which is when the child feels a lack of courage, they will be very shut down, and they're very cautious about trying new things, because for them, once they fail, there's going to be a lot of negative repercussions, and therefore they rather give up than trying again. So when they lack courage, they feel very useless and defeated, and they see failure as a very strong obstacle, and they would rather just play in their safe zone so that they don't have to disappoint themselves and disappoint each other. And therefore, there is this idea that they refuse to try again. When you see a lot of kids who are disheartened or discouraged in school, this is most likely because of the lack of courage or encouragement that their parents gave them when they were growing up. So these are some of the behavioral issues and emotional issues you might see if the kid is missing out on any of these crucial C's. So now is to share how can we actually improve or nurture these crucial C's in our children. So let's start with connection. So I think this photograph is something that most of us probably do when we have free time with our kids, where parents say we want to spend time with each other. And I think earlier on when we were asking about challenges, this was something that was brought up. Now, other than connecting by, setting aside time with kids to do something fun, there are also times when we can still connect with kids in terms of getting them to help us out around the household. And you might also want to listen more to what their opinions are and make them feel heard. So that's how you would connect. And I would summarize some of the ideas as, like the picture on the side, the father and son. So it's like spending some time talking to the child about, what matters to them. And I think one of the conversations parents can have, especially with this working from home situation, is to sit down with the child and say, hey, mommy or daddy has been home for some time now. What do you think? What is nice about me being at home and what is not nice? And you get the child to share their opinions about it. Of course, reading together helps, sharing stories, allowing the child to exercise their creativity, and having the adult to listen to their stories actually makes them feel very connected. And for some families, they might even engage in playing board games just to have some fun. So these are just some simple ideas to connect with your child. Of course, if audience, you can think of any other tips, you can share it in your chat box so that fellow audiences can also share some tips with each other. Now, the next thing that I would like to talk about is this sense of capable. How do we develop the child's understanding that, hey, they can do things for themselves and for other people? So one of the things that Betty talks about is actually to find vocational skills within the child. So like you see this little boy here, he's washing his cup. So a good way to develop his sense of being capable would be to tell him, hey, I see you're washing your own cup. Good work, keep it up. So you are reinforcing the child on the behavior you want to see, and you're telling him that what he's doing is very important. So you might add things like, because you're so helpful, mommy or daddy can have more time to spend with you later because you're helping me with the housework. So that's how you acknowledge their contributions. The other thing that Betty talks about is giving options to kids, teaching them about decision making. And if you look at my next slide, This is some examples of how you can develop their sense of mastery. Like the one on the left, the daddy is showing the daughter how to do her science project. So he's teaching her like what parts need to go where, or what are these components, what they're for. And on the right, if you see that little girl, I think her mommy or daddy has just taught her how to make a healthy decision in terms of choosing snacks. And of course, again, when they are able to have decisions making, they will feel like, hey, I also have a say and my opinion matters. So that's some of the ways we can develop the capable C. But if you have any other tips or things that are working well with your kids, feel free to share it in the chat box as well. And so very closely connected to this idea of capable is you need to show that whatever the child does counts. So I know that now Ramadan is coming around and Raya is around the corner. So some of us are busy in the kitchen making Raya cookies. So definitely this is a good time to teach our kids a vocational skill and give them the opportunity to help you in the kitchen. Now, those of us who don't bake, we can also get them to help us in preparing our meals. Let them have the option of, okay, what kind of vegetable would you like to eat today? Would you prefer to eat the kangkong, or do you want cauliflower, or do you want bok choy? What would you like? So you give them the chance to share their opinion and tell you why they want to eat that vegetable. And Betty also highlights one very important thing, which is spending time to talk about how kids feel about things and listening to those opinions of theirs. Now, a lot of parents probably have that common theme that goes, my kids always say I don't listen enough. And chances are you were probably listening, but maybe a good way to show the kid that you actually heard would be to summarize back what they had said so that they feel like, yeah, mommy and daddy actually pay attention to what I just said. So for Betty, one way to make children feel like their opinions count is to listen. Listen hard and kind of, even if they're saying things, that they are complaining, parents can always turn it into a constructive way and say, okay, I hear you're upset, but how about we can try something else to help you get through a task or get through these tough emotions. So parents, one thing is we need to brush up on our listening skills. One last point is she also mentioned that there's always this sense when kids misbehave, there's a need to punish. However, what Betty feels is that rather than focusing on their unhelpful behaviors, we can highlight their strengths and contributions. And that's how they will continue to repeat all the positive or the desirable behaviors we want to see. So some of the things that you could do in order to show that, you value their contributions, you value them as a person, is, like I mentioned, helping with meal preparations. If the kid is interested in something, maybe you can spend 5 to 10 minutes a day just talking to the kid about their interest. And sometimes you may also want to sit down and just process and listen to their feelings and their thoughts. So these are some ways you can help them develop the count crucial C. And finally, last but not least, we need to teach our kids to be brave and courageous, to know that whatever setbacks and challenges that they come across, those are just temporary things. And if they are hopeful and if they are able to use their skills, they would be able to overcome it. And so the focus whenever they experience failure should be about the process and how to improve. So how can we do things better next time? What can you do differently? And of course, for parents, one way to develop courage is to give them tasks that, you know, the success rate is very high. So like just now, the little boy washing his cup, the success rate of him cleaning it is pretty high. He just needs to turn on the tap, rub a bit of soap on it, and he's done. And as they grow older, you give them more and more advanced tasks so that they can develop their skill sets. So that's definitely a way to build courage. And another point that Betty mentioned is adults also have to lead by example in terms of when we make small mistakes, we need to own up to it. So, for example, let's say your kid had said, I want to eat chicken tonight. And unfortunately, you ran out of chicken and you forgot to buy it. So probably you could, you know, you would cook maybe fish in as an alternative, and you could say, I'm sorry, today we can't have chicken because mommy or daddy didn't manage to go to the shop, but let's have fish. And the next time when we go to the store, we'll pick up some chicken and I'll make you your favorite chicken dish. So we own up to the things that we didn't do, and we look them in the eye and we say, I'm sorry. And from there, they will learn that, oh, okay, whenever I make a mistake, I need to own up, and I need to have the courage to own up. And that is how they will feel that, you know, even if they have mistakes, it gives them a chance to learn how to do things better. So that's something that Betty also mentioned. So some of the other courage ideas is to actually provide comfort. I think a lot of parents do try to provide comfort to our kids. However, I also noticed that as kids grow older, parents assume that, well, they have to learn to suck it up and comfort themselves. So at times, you know, if you see even your teenager or your school going kids, they're having a tough time, it's just about talking to them and giving them some encouragement and listening again to what they thought about their experience in doing that task that led to some kind of failure. So again, it's a lot of listening and just being present with your child. So these are some ideas you can use to develop courage. Now, just to one final thing that Betty actually mentioned, and this is more for the couples who are in here today, or even if you're not here as a couple, just one of you, something for us to consider as adults, that if we want kids to learn how to be respectful of their parents and of each other, we need to role play it. We need to model it for them. And therefore, Betty says that healthy relationships are based on mutual respect. And this is a very condensed version of what Adler had to say, which is, he says, the fundamental guarantee of marital happiness is the feeling that you are worthwhile, meaning that you're important in that relationship. You see yourself as an equal partner in that relationship, and that you cannot be replaced easily. So nobody can take your place. And that your partner actually does rely on you, you know, to satisfy their emotional needs, their physical needs, and they see you as on the same level. And basically, Adler also says that you have to see your partner as your friend, your comrade. And when it comes to parenting, what better way to parent than child than to be always on the same page? So in essence, you know, one other thing that Betty and Adler talks about is the need for communication. And I think this is something as adults, we can definitely work on further. So that kind of wraps up my content for the webinar. However, because we felt that today this is a very close topic to everyone's heart, so we wanted to spend a bit of time taking some questions regarding some parenting challenges you might have. So I wonder at this point, Eve, as you're looking at the chat box, are there any questions that are outstanding that we could talk to or respond to?
Yeah, sure, Xiuli. Thanks for sharing so much. Oh my God, whatever that you have described just now, totally got reflected on my kids. Yeah.
Okay.
Besides them mopping the floor when they're angry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And in fact, just to continue from where we left off just now, actually
Mm,
quite a lot of the audience says that calling full short name and then full name is the way that they capture attention.
mm,
And the other guest here says that, you know, when their kids are throwing tantrum, they will
mm,
notice that they start throwing things, teddy bears, cushions,
mm.
everything are flying everywhere.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm. Yes,
correct.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a way to connect with the adult, which is to get attention.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Okay. Apart from that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's this guest who is asking what happens when the kids start crying really loud and get the mom's attention while the mom is working from home, engaging in a lot of working con calls.
Mm, okay, so
Mm,
how do we deal with the
yes.
crying child?
Mm,
Okay, well, I guess in if we looked back at the slide, again, the child maybe feels a bit disconnected with the mom. The child is making a lot of noise. And of course, a lot of parent experts will say that, well, you just need to let the child to express themselves and cry. However, I would point out that if it's possible for this audience to actually seek some help from fellow family members, like especially if you know that the next day you will have at least 2 or 3 con calls back to back, perhaps it would be to just ask someone in the family if they are able to help to entertain the child,
mm,
or if you are really working on your own and there's no one else who could help you, it's probably to start off the day, maybe during breakfast, to brief the child on your timetable and say, hey, mommy today has work, and you look at the clock on the wall, so it's 10 o'clock. So mommy will be busy from 10 to 12. So sharing the briefing your child that 10 to 12 is mommy's work time. And mommy is going to give you some tasks to do. So from this time to this time, you need to finish these tasks, and then mommy will come back to you. And of course, when you are able to give your child some expectation, they will know that, okay, there is that time frame and they have to occupy themselves and complete whatever mommy or daddy has set them up to do. So that would be some of the ways that you could help in managing the child's expectations for the day as well. Yeah.
mhm.
So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, in fact, I just somewhat learned about applying this particular technique is to tell them that, you know, today I have so many calls at this time. The only window I have is only this window. Therefore,
Mm,
you probably want to plan yourself, you know, what would you want to share with me? And similarly, I think one of the way that I reflected my schedule with their schedule is that I want them to understand that, hey, during you have your virtual classroom right now, yeah, mommy
mm,
didn't come in and disturb you, am I right? Yeah, I didn't
mm,
take over
mhm,
your classroom, I didn't talk to your teacher, you know,
mhm,
I didn't
mhm,
interrupt you. Therefore,
mhm.
I'm teaching them how to also respect certain arrangement like this. Yeah, I'm sure
Very
a
good.
lot of parents out there are
Yeah.
having some frustration when they're having con call, kids are running everywhere, and you just have to smile at the camera and yes, nothing is happening behind me. Therefore, I always jokingly telling my colleagues, my friends, and even my clients, I'm so sorry. I'm operating a zoo right here. Yeah, so in case if anything running around, yeah, just bear with me. Yeah, and people are very kind and accepted.
Yeah, I
Yes.
suppose a lot of people are feeling the
Mm.
same pinch, that they have a
Ah,
zoo in the background. It's just that, they are trying to keep themselves calm and smile at
yeah,
the camera.
yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I guess one
Mm,
final thing I could say in relation to this question
mm,
would be,
mm.
do give yourself some quiet time at least once a day, every day, to decompress from work. I used to encourage a lot of first time moms who are working to use their shower time, for example, to calm down and practice breathing, because this is the only private time where nobody can disturb you. And it's for you to just calm yourself. And they found that when they were calmer after coming out of the shower, especially those with younger kids, they realize the kids fuss lesser because mommy is in a calm mood. So the kid doesn't have to do a lot of things to catch mommy's attention. So that could be something our guests can consider as well when they finish their work day, to just go and take a shower and relax for a few moments before you go on to entertain your kids. Yeah.
What I did was slightly differently. When my kid is throwing his tantrum, I'm asking him to go and take the shower. You go take a shower and calm down.
That works too. That's really
ended up he enjoyed playing bubbles in the bathroom. At least he kept himself entertained and bought myself some time as well. And Xiuli, we have a guest here asking, is connected to the same question. So for example, even the mom would have already briefed a 3 years old kid in advance about the con calls, the meetings, but the kiddo is still making a fuss and not only wants the mother, and the kid just wants the mom only, even though the family member tried to calm him or her down, the kid. Is there any other forms or techniques that can try to calm the kid down?
Well, I suppose for younger kids, the techniques will have to be a bit different because, to be honest, kids below 5, their attention span is definitely not going to be very long. So one of the things is to actually have constant reminders set aside. So if you know that by half an hour, the kid may be starting to fuss, then one of the things that the caregivers can do to help out this mom is they would need to have a few activities lined up so that every half an hour you change the activity. So the kid is like, oh, wow, this is something new. And then they will be distracted for another half an hour. So in a way, you kind of buy time for yourself. So I understand that being a working parent is difficult, and definitely apart from doing research for work, we also have to research different activities that we can do with our kids. So, but what you can do is get other people in the family to maybe research 1 or 2 activities. So you have at least a pool of 10 activities ready, and every half an hour, you change the activities. And of course, you remind the child that, hey, it's not times is not up yet. Let's do this activity and see whether that works. Yeah.
Okay, Xiuli, actually one of the guests has an interesting question, and I personally would like to know the answer as well.
Okay.
And actually, Tang is asking, is it okay to let the kids to watch videos in the meantime? I guess it's because just to distract the kids, while we're having con call. And how long or how much time is considered appropriate? What do you think?
Okay. So actually, this screen time thing is a very new challenge for parents. I think in the last 10 years, it's just blown out of proportion because suddenly, the screen is the best babysitter because it really catches the child's attention. Right?
Yes.
It's very immediate, and you just need to make sure your iPad is charged and you're fine for even a good 3 hours. I would say that although I don't have a rule of thumb for having how much screen time, but I do think that anything more than 45 minutes, you need to kind of like at least take the child and have a water break, or have a snack break, and get them to do something that is not so stimulating. Because if you think about it, even when we go for lectures or classes, or if you go to primary school or even secondary school, the classes are only about 50 minutes. And that's usually the average attention span a child has. So, that could be your rule of thumb, and say, after 50 minutes, let's have 10 minutes to wind down. Let's do some breathing exercises or some stretching, get them to drink water, run about. And that will be a good way to manage their screen time. Because I think this is something that a lot of parents are finding it difficult. And it requires less effort from us when we just use the iPad. But in the end, it is still that connection that the child wants. So you, if it's possible, you should still try to schedule some me time with the child, and even discuss about what they just watched. Why do they want to watch it? What is so nice about that show? And have a stimulating conversation with them. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm sure you did. Thank you so much. Yes.
Welcome.
I will at least try to control screen time with my kids now. Otherwise, yeah, the iPad seems to be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yes. And Michelle has another very interesting question. Michelle is
Okay.
asking, how do I go about when my two kids are fighting for the mom's attention all the time? When the dad steps in to help, the dad's attention seems to become too readily available, hence it becomes less valued. Is there any way that you can teach us how to balance off between the parents?
Okay, so if you remembered my slides earlier, definitely scheduling me time, one-to-one interactions with the child is very rewarding. So I would think that, if your two kids are fighting for your attention, maybe you can come up with a verbal agreement and say, okay, how about this? Since mommy is working and, you feel like you don't have time to talk to mommy, how about, okay, sister A, Mondays, 2 p.m., you can have a half an hour conversation with mommy, and sister B has to go and spend time with daddy. And then after that, at 3 o'clock, sister B comes and talks to mommy, and then sister A has to go and spend time with daddy. And this should be something that's communicated as a family. So you might want to hold a small family meeting and talk about these things, and also try and understand from the child's point of view. Um, what would they like to do during that half an hour? So you kind of like do some planning so that you can have some kind of agenda also when you are spending time with your child. So there's a structure. So perhaps you can try that. Of course, the first point is to talk to your spouse. Say, hey, I want to call a family meeting, and I want to have it more structured in a way that the kids know that on certain days we will have a one-to-one, just me and one of the child, and you take one of the child. And is that okay? And let your spouse also share their opinion and see if it works. It could be very rewarding. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I believe the solution that you have shared just now is meant for maybe kids of certain age. But what about Alicia has a very good question. Alicia, I wish I have asked this question many years ago when my baby is still very young. Yeah, but never mind, it's okay. It came 10 years too late, but I still want to know the answer. And Xiuli, Alicia is asking, what will be a good approach to ensure collective responsibility established between the mom and the father looking after a baby? Yeah, so that it's not just one side struggling with the level of responsibility. I can totally empathize, Alicia. Yeah. So Alicia, I mean, Xiuli, any tips for Alicia?
Well, Alicia, I would think that the most important aspect is the communication, and talking to your partner about this shared responsibility. At the same time, I would say, it's important to take ownership of how you are feeling. And rather than saying, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, it would be more of, I feel tired because I have to juggle work and taking care of the baby, 24 hours a day. I feel stressed out, and I feel like I need help. So when you use the I message and take responsibility of how you're truly feeling and how the thing or the matter is disturbing you, the other party will be less defensive and more likely to say, oh, okay, I didn't realize you are going through all this. So at the basic part is communicating openly with your spouse is important. And perhaps, if really you are in this kind of relationship where everyone is quite structured, perhaps you can come up with an agreement and say, you know what, I have some meetings on these days. Can you, during those times in the day, take turns and help me with the child? And when you are busy on your con calls, those will be the times I will be fully responsible and take on the child. So communication is really important. As Betty mentioned, both parties need to feel that mutual respect and understanding, to feel like both of you are important. So we have to acknowledge that our spouse also is making important contributions to the family. And that way, they are more likely to be on the same page and be your comrade. So I think maybe start with that, have a conversation with your spouse.
Nice. So start talking to spouses is also important. The communication, use the I message, yes. And of course, Michelle, actually thank you, Xiuli, for the answer. Just that
welcome.
she's saying that the kids is actually 4 years old and the 2-year-old kid. The 4 years old seems to understand, just that the 2 years old will nod his head, but when when time comes, they will still shout the mommy. See, mommy's still the best. Oh, okay, we have male audience. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't forget the daddies out there.
I know. All right. I'm not too sure about the rest of the guests, but for me personally, I noticed that I actually pick a bit of what Xiuli have introduced, like putting structure in place, having a family meeting. So I used to tell my son, especially because my daughter was still young. So I used to tell my son, saying that, hey, I want to set a rule like this, like this, like this. So what do you think? So eventually he picked the structure up and he became the one who initiated to have a meeting. We need to talk. I was like, oh, okay. So you see, that's also his way of calling for attention. When he said we need to talk, I as a mom, I know that okay, it's something serious that he really want to talk. And therefore, after which I'll do mom and son time by doing pillow talk. And I'm not too sure about Xiuli, but Xiuli, do you think that pillow talk works? Because for me, pillow talk with both my kids work perfectly well. And it's awesome because pillow talk is the time when they feel that it's the safest and they can really share as much as possible about their feeling, about their thoughts. Yeah, what do you think? Does pillow talk work? Is it a good method to engage with and connect with the child?
Well, it's definitely one of the methods that parents use to engage, because during bedtime is probably when people are most relaxed, and then you're in a very safe and comfortable environment. But I'm just thinking, some of us may not have that luxury of having, maybe some parents actually stay with both their kids in the room. So sometimes pillow talk may be a bit difficult. So definitely, what else they can do is, that's why we have the structured me time with the child. So you might want to take the child into the living area or the dining room, and during that half an hour do an activity, or like you said, still have a pillow talk with them. So this is just for I'm just thinking about families who might not have a lot of space in their home to do pillow talk. But definitely, your method is really something effective, and I think they will be more willing to share because it puts them at ease. So yeah, do keep it up. And for those audience who do it as well, do keep it up. I think it's a very precious time for the kids. So yeah, I would say do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll continue doing it. My son will love hearing this. All right. So I think it's already time.
Oh
Of
wow.
course,
Okay.
yes. And we
So
also have
fast.
audience who's asking for the slides.
Oh,
So, my
okay.
audience, if you like to have a copy of the slides, we are more than willing to share the slides with you. All you need to do is after this session, we will be having yes, you will be seeing a QR code. So please scan the QR code so that you can give us some feedback. And yeah, your feedback is most valuable to us. Please scan the QR code, give us your feedback, and also drop us a note saying that you would wish to have the presentation slides, and we will definitely share it with you. And before we end the session, just to also do a promo for our next week's session. Next week, we're going to have a conversation matters, creating meaningful bonds. And therefore, please tune in, same on Thursday, 3 o'clock. Yeah, tune in and speak to us. We'll be having a panelist session, coming up. And of course, the next session will be our last session of webinar conducted by Eunoia. Therefore, please come in, support us, and we would like to see you again. And before I wrap up the whole webinar for today, just to also touch on, our affiliated company, People Science, is actually initiating a positively infectious campaign, which there is when we say, hey, apart from being very poised parents, we also wish to also spread a lot more positive energy out there. And in fact, the other day I was telling my kid, during this crisis moment, we want to also make people happy. More people happy, we will become happy ourselves as well as child. So therefore, people, please support this particular campaign called positively infectious. And of course, thanks for sharing with us on how to become a very poised parent. I'll better remind myself of doing the same thing again and again. And before we moved on, I would like to share with my guests is that listening is really important. Just now when Xiuli shared about the importance of listening to our kids is like a absolute reminder to me, because my kids always says, "Mommy, listen to me. I need to talk." Yeah. Or they say, "Mommy, we know what you want, but please understand us." And this is where listen is very important. And thanks for the reminder, Xiuli. I guess I better have a good chat with my son, but he must be thanking you a lot that my mom is finally listening to me. And yes, definitely, Dennis, we will share the slides with you as well. And thank you, audiences, for tuning in. Thank you for staying along with us to listen to Xiuli's sharing. And Xiuli, is there any closing remark that you would like to say?
Well, I just want to thank the audience for your support and dropping by. Even though a lot of you are parents here, I'm sure this 1 hour was very precious. So I'm really grateful that, you spend time in tuning into us. Next week, we'll be talking about more on communication. So, earlier we had some questions about communicating with our spouses. Perhaps this would be a good time for you to drop by again, just to see how you could manage your conversation styles with your partner.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you so much. And I just want to wish everybody, our Muslim viewers, happy Ramadan. Yeah, and stay safe, everyone. Take care.
Yes, thank you, Xiuli. And of course, children are very pure. How do we actually educate them, or how do we actually influence them? They model after us. Therefore, no matter how upset we are at times, maybe as parents, even myself, I just have to try to cool myself down. Yeah, calm down and connect with them. Yeah. But I guess that's how kids has been picking up a lot of habits from us as well. So, dear parents out there, yeah, let's keep up our good work and let's do the best for our kids. Yep. And for our Muslim friends out there, happy and blessed Ramadan. Yep. I will see you guys next week. Same time, Thursday, 3 o'clock. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.